Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings, family. Welcome to the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. We're going to talk tonight a little bit about how I think that we can begin to use some form of a franchising model to begin to scale and expand and open businesses in our community. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. I got a few commercials. Call your friends, tell them come on over into the room. Let's talk about franchising.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that history develops the springs and motives of human action, which display themselves most powerfully in the destiny of man. History actually motivates and stimulates human action. Sometimes you may not know what to expect from yourself. But if you only could read the autobiography of someone from among your people who has achieved, then that tells you what is possible to do. Black people in America have labored without understanding the realm of possibility for black people. And because we don't know what is possible for us as a people to achieve, we labor under the misconception that the accomplishments of Caucasian people should be our guide. And as a result, we keep on trying to be like them rather than trying to be ourselves. This is a result of being robbed of history.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace and blessings. How is everyone doing on this wonderful summer Thursday evening? I see a couple of y'all in the chat already. I wanted to talk tonight about, excuse me, a business tool that I think would be a really good tool for us to begin to tweak and deploy in our communities to help more people open more businesses, and to scale in a faster way. Because what's happening now is, again, we're still trying to climb our way out of the stresses of rugged individualism, and because of that, a lot of us are building, our one little business, and we're not thinking about how, one day we may be able to franchise that. Meaning, if we go into the business, especially when you got those of you that have restaurants like ice cream shops like Sean Michelle's or Sip and Savor, you have several different stores. Once we create the model, and we can begin to open up those stores and those shops and give other Black entrepreneurs in other cities an opportunity, because the idea is to really make our communities opportunity zones that benefit us, as opposed to opportunity zones that benefit everybody else and end up hurting us. Because everybody comes to the hood, comes to our community to open up a liquor store, fast food chain, a nail shop, all those things that we see in every single community. But what if we were opening businesses and creating the systems and the processes, and then utilizing that model to open in other neighborhoods and then open in other cities? And then we'd have those businesses all throughout the countries, just like you see Baskin Robbins or Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's. When you're buying into, certain franchise, you're not necessarily buying the best food. You're buying a system. You're buying into a system that is tried and proven, and you are likely going to make a certain amount of money. I've been part of a franchise before as a franchisee, and it certainly has its ups and downs, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I want us to think about the model of franchising, because a lot of us are kind of struggling in our businesses, but we're not thinking long term. And I think that if we thought long term and said, you know what, let me put systems, processes in place, let me document it. So there's a manual, an operations manual, and franchising is regulated. So there's some legal ramifications to it that are important. But I just think it's an important tool. I think it's something that we should begin to consider. So if you own that kind of scalable business, and I've even been working on putting that together for museum spaces, for consulting businesses, where I can say to somebody, look, you can open a business just like this in Dallas, in Houston, in Chicago, in New York, in Nairobi, in Lagos. And then you, as the CEO or the primary franchisor, you would then be going around just teaching and training. And we'll talk about the different types of franchises as well. But this is just, me being a visionary and thinking about how we can grow and expand businesses in our community. Okay. And I think that franchising, there's different types, and we would have to sit down, to with a franchise attorney and get you all set up. But I really, really do think that this is something that can be done fast, because, if let's say you own a I always use this example. Let's say you fry chicken and you gotta look at Harold's Chicken. What's preventing us from doing that with many of our other businesses? The biggest challenge, or there's a few challenges, but a lot of times people don't like to follow directions and instructions. I even, as a creative, I had to get myself together, because when I first became a Massage Envy franchisee, I didn't like the furniture that they said I had to use. So, with the franchisee, the system is all set up, including the decor, because it has to look the same, right? You can't, it has to be there's some variations, but it has to look the same, right? And I didn't like the furniture. So I wanted to put I had this leather white couch that I had in my office in Chicago. And I wanted that white couch in the lobby. And, again, there's monitoring, and they know the regional people came out and was like, girl, if you don't get that couch out of here. So I ended up, had to move the couch. But I want us to think about franchising. So any business you're putting together, it could be a home health business. It could be a restaurant. It could be a tax business. It could be financial services. Think about how you can franchise it so that you can take your business model to another professional like yourself, somebody who's professional, who's going to follow the rules, who ain't going to, mess up and be acting all crazy, and say, hey, you want to open up a financial services business? You want to open up a home health agency? You want to open up, a skincare business? You want to open up an ice cream shop? You want to open up a cafe? Whatever it is you want to do, say, okay, I can give you my model and you pay me a fee and we'll work out some of the details. So what I want to do, first thing I want to do before we go into what different types of franchises there are, I want to just play this video to show us what a franchise is. And I'm going to take myself off the screen, and I want you guys to give me a thumbs up if you can see and hear this okay.
Welcome back to my YouTube definition channel. Today I will share about what is franchise. Previously, I really appreciate you for supporting this channel by clicking subscribe, like, and share. Let's get started. What is franchise? Franchising is a form of business cooperation between the owner of a brand, product, or operational system with a second party in the form of granting a license to use the brand, product, and operational system. Franchise is an agreement in which one of the parties is granted the right to utilize and/or use intellectual property rights or a meeting of business characteristics owned by another party in exchange for a fee based on requirements determined by the other party in the context of providing and/or selling goods and services. Franchise is cooperation in the field of business with profit sharing in accordance with the agreement, management rights, marketing rights. Franchising is a privilege granted by a company to another company or individual to sell the same product in a certain place. In short, franchise means rights or freedoms. In a broad sense, it is defined as a right between the brand owner of a product and the brand user. In a more general language, a franchise can also be interpreted as a partnership business. What do you think? Please comment.
All right. I know the video was corny, but it was something that I wanted to find just to give you guys a basic definition of what a franchise is. Because I can see it that instead of, especially in communities like in the Muslim community, or even if it's within your sorority or fraternity, instead of you guys having competing businesses, because this is a problem too, right? Instead of us having competing businesses, why not say, hey, I own, these 3 cafes here in Chicago. And if you want to open up a cafe, you can open up that same one in Houston or in Kansas City, just like they do McDonald's. We'll work out the fees, we'll work out the rights, you got access to our systems. And you may say, yeah, but I got a better recipe for cornbread muffins or farina muffins or something. Well, then maybe later that's a new product, because franchises do introduce new products into the system. But the idea is that all the recipes are consistent, the style, of the store is consistent. And then sometimes you'll hear, I remember maybe a couple years into owning the Massage Envy franchise, we had what we call a refresh, where we had to pay to refresh to the new model. And, and oftentimes places you rent, there's different configurations and stuff, but you want the signage to be consistent. And then at your headquarters, which can be here in Chicago, you can create the master marketing plan, and people will pay a percentage to tap into that marketing. So you may handle all the national marketing, all the national commercials. You work with an agency and you guys put all that together. And then your franchisees then benefit from that. Okay. And they may pay into a fund. You'll have job descriptions that'll be systemic, that'll be succinct and the same. You'll have hours of operations that are the same, but the products and services will be delivered in the same manner. So all of the processes for how you deliver the services will be the same. So I want us to start thinking about that. Really, really thinking about that, because this is a way that we can take our communities and create these opportunity zones by duplicating these businesses. Now, it's going to require us to have our integrity in check. It's going to require that both parties have their integrity in check. Okay. So as the franchisor, you can't just be thinking this is a way to get money. You really got to have a mission in your head. And if your mission is to scale your business, but to also give other people an opportunity, you got to go about that in a conscious entrepreneurial type of way that we talk about and learn here on this show. So this ain't a hustle. This ain't a scheme. This ain't about, let me see how I can get some quick money. This is about scaling your business and offering opportunities to others. Now, on the other side, as a franchisee, you have to be honest as well, because while you don't have to build the entire business from scratch, you can't be going, well, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and buy into the Sean Michelle's ice cream, but I ain't gonna sell their ice cream. I'm gonna sell my own, or I'm gonna cheat and go down to the store and get some dollar store ice cream. So your integrity gotta be in check, okay? And there has to be enforcement on the part of the franchisor, so that, and there's agreement that's signed, so that if you don't follow and if you're not in compliance, we can shut you down and prevent you and take away your license and prevent you from using our name. So there's checks and balances and things like that there. But I think that if we're really enthusiastic about spreading businesses, I think that this is a really, really good tool for us. Put any questions or anything you want to talk about regarding this in the chat. I really want to take your questions today on that. I'm going to go into this video here before I talk about the advantages. While you guys are working on your questions, this video talks about the different types of franchises. So we've already defined what a franchise is. I'm going to show this video to talk about different types of franchises. And then I'm going to go through what some of the advantages are of having a franchise in a little bit more of a list fashion and format. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear and see this.
So people approach me, they want to know the different types of franchises because they're interested in possibly owning a franchise while they're employed. And I share with them, franchise models come in 3 different buckets. First bucket I call owner-operator models. You are the business. It's the man in the van model in many cases. Your plumber decides to jump ship from a plumbing company and buy a Roto-Rooter, and he wants to go out and service customers all day. And he's happy, doesn't care to build an enterprise, and there's no problem with that. There are plenty of options in that category. On the other end of the spectrum are models I call executive models. And I call them that because these are the types of models that executives want to own, because they're not going to leave their career to own the franchise. They're going to continue doing what they're doing. This is purely an investment strategy for diversification of their portfolio. Where most franchises exist is this middle bucket. This middle bucket, semi-passive ownership. You are involved day to day. Initially, you'll be heavily involved in the business. You're the leader. Your staff looks to you for direction, but you're loving what you're doing. You want to be involved. You're someone who doesn't feel comfortable setting it and forgetting it. As the business matures and grows, you can come in late, you can leave early, you can go on vacation, and the business will still be operating. I think that's the desire of most business owners in and out of franchising, is that you have a business that's not dependent upon you being there. Otherwise, you bought yourself a job, and if that wasn't your intention, you're going to wind up being miserable.
Okay, family. That gave us a little bit of an idea of the different types of franchises. And so you can, create whatever style you want. And sometimes the franchise agreement will dictate. Some only like owner operators. Some don't like investment type of situations where the person isn't hardly there. But it really just depends on the type of business that you have. And then you as the franchisor, you can create a whole school, just like McDonald's does. They got their whole McDonald's University down in the West Loop here in Chicago. You can create a whole school that trains people on how to build the business, how to run the business, marketing, etc. And you can even have corporate stores where you go into business with people and you say, hey, you want to be an owner operator and we'll go into business. It might be a 60-40 split. And so some stores are corporate stores, and then some stores may be, individually owned. I just think that this is a very powerful tool for us to begin to think about as we're building and growing our businesses. And this can be done. It doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. But there's an advantage to uniting, pooling our resources, and moving away from some of this rugged individualism, because on those days when you don't feel like doing all the hustling and you're tired, I don't know about y'all, but I get tired, So, maybe there's somebody else that runs another business or that runs the bulk of the business for you. And I know there's oftentimes a challenge. There's a challenge in our community, but there's a challenge overall with finding the right kind of staffing and people who are going to respect you. That's why I say in some of our micro organizations, we can do it. So let's say Muslims in the Nation of Islam, we can find a certain type of business that we can scale, because there may be a certain amount of mutual respect and compatibility. Maybe if you all are in the same church, or maybe if you all are in the same sorority, or if you're alumni of a certain school, but some kind of micro organization where there are levels of compatibility, so that when you go into business with one another, you can come out of some of the challenges that we have, interpersonal challenges that we have. Then we can say, hey, proper handling of people is part of our customer service and HR manual, or self-improvement is part of our HR manual. We're pulling from there. We can pull from all of these different things that are part of the organization, that your micro organization that you belong to, that helps to build that type of compatibility. Sister Betty says, we can do it. It's time to do it. Welcome, Sister Sandra, Sister Monica, Sister Aletha. Sandra D said, are there any grocery store franchises that's something we can use in our neighborhoods, or should I just open one? Well, my answer to you with that, Sister Sandra, grocery stores have been on my mind very, very heavily. You all know that this kind of stuff is a calling for me. So even when I got other things in my own life going on, I'm constantly getting downloads where it's like God says, nope, think about this and think about that. And I try to use this platform to bring it out here to you guys. But a grocery store has been on my mind so much so that I was in an Uber. I don't even know where I flew to. I was in an Uber, and the guy who was driving the Uber started telling me about his parents who had a grocery store that they were selling. And then just the other day, I was having a conversation about having a fresh market, something that was very much like the stores in the 50s and 60s that Trader Joe's is modeled off of, where you got produce and all kinds of natural things. But that has been on my mind, Sister Sandra. I was talking to one of the pioneers in the Nation of Islam who just out the blue started talking to me about a grocery store. So it's time. And I think that, yes, to answer your question, let me go back to that. To answer your question, yes, there are grocery store franchises. It's definitely something we need in our neighborhoods. And do I think you should just open one? Yes, I do. I think you should just open one. And I think you should work on getting the investors, getting the funding together, and you should hire me and I can put it together for you. And we can make sure that we make it scalable. We have all of our policies and procedures intact. And once we get the model down, we can open that same store in other neighborhoods, just like Pete's or Maggiano's or Safeway. We can open in other parts of the country. And other people have to be willing to buy into it. You know, if you think about, when the Asians were redlined, and I don't mean that. Let me qualify this before I say this. I don't mean to bring them up as if to say that if they did it, we can do it. Although I do believe that if they did it, we can do it. I'm not taking for granted all of the challenges that we have. I was thinking the other day, I was having a conversation with somebody that I used to work with in corporate. And he said to me, he said, Wendy, if my people had the same challenges in business that you all had, and what I've watched you face as a businesswoman, he said, I don't think we would make it. And he said to me, he said, if you guys can get out from under that, there are some very powerful business people in your community, and you're one of them. And I said, yeah, you're right. I was having a conversation with one of my former business partners, and I said, we spent the entire time just battling. I mean, just serious warfare. And you can only imagine, really how much that set us back. And even now, how much that has challenged us, to say the least. But in mentioning the Asians, there's a smaller number of them, right? So it's easier to do things when it's a smaller number of you. But when they were redlined and they all started having to come, they could only come to our neighborhoods and open up these stores and all of these other things, these nail shops and stuff like that. They saw that and they kind of franchised it. So if you notice, they use the same nail polish in each store. They all are kind of set up the same. You can tell they buy their chairs and stuff from the same place. And everything it just kind of looks like the products and services, they're all the same. And even when we go into the nail business, we get our stuff from them. So we can easily be that for our community, but you got to want to do it, right? And you got to want to be honest. It's like being in a relationship. We can't force you to do it if you don't really want to be there. Okay. So that's why, again, I say go to our micro organizations where there's levels of compatibility. And then I think it might be, easier to do it. So it'll kind of be like, okay, the alphas, they all got these certain brand of barbershops, or the Nation of Islam Muslims, they all got these grocery stores or whatever. But just using that as an example. So yes, Sister Sandra D, to both of your questions. Sister Monica said, we have an NOI national gross product. It would be great to see it become a franchise for continuity. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we should be thinking about. There are some Black-owned canned vegetables and other brands out there. Thank you. Yeah. So, and then in our organizations and in our grocery store, we can serve food that is healthy for us. So I'm not talking about replicating business models with food and processed food and packaged food that's killing us. I'm talking that have killed us in the past. Things where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us not to eat out of aluminum. So I'm not necessarily talking about that, but I'm talking about a store model that is in support of how to eat to live. That's all about prolonging life, curing diabetes, getting rid of high blood pressure, getting rid of high cholesterol, reducing some of the vascular devastation that is rampant in our community through the dietary processes and the food that we offer in our community grocery stores that we can easily set up and franchise. Okay. So let me just talk to you guys really quickly here about, and I'm thinking about, we would just have classes. There will be these different classes. They could be through this platform where we teach people how to franchise, how to be a franchisor, and how to be a franchisee. Because, you hear this all the time, well, everybody ain't an entrepreneur. No, you're right. But a lot of people can be a franchisee. Right? Sister Sandra said, Diet Right Grocery. I'm liking that, Sister Sandra. Diet Right Grocery. I'm feeling that. No, so everybody can't build a business from scratch, but a lot of people can work a job, which means that they can work a franchise and be a franchisee, especially if they're like a owner operator or an owner manager. So for those people who don't have the capacity, the desire to build something from scratch, those of us that have that capacity to build from scratch, we can build from scratch, design the model, and give it to those who don't have the capacity, and they can run, and it can be their store, their family business. Okay. All right. So here's a few benefits of franchising. And again, we would take those different type of franchises, create our own franchise model, and each one would be tailored within the rules of the law for each of the things that we are scaling and expanding and franchising. This is just my vision. Capital. The franchisor's capital requirements will be lower because the franchisees provide the capital to open each franchise outlet. So the franchise fee might be $20,000. Okay. And then you have to, usually the way it goes, you pay a franchise fee and then you have to cover your build out costs. So the franchisor would tell you based on their research where the good zip codes are and where the good neighborhoods are to open. This is another benefit of having a franchise, because we will have already done the research to know where it would make sense to put this particular type of business. So you're not opening it up in a space that's not good for it in the first place. Okay. Some people are good at opening businesses, but they're not good at running businesses. So it just depends. This helps us. So for the capital requirements, we can work that out as well. We can have some type of community fund. Maybe the person says, no, I don't want to split my proceeds with anybody. I got my own $20,000 and I got $100,000 to do the build out. But I don't think we should let those numbers scare us, because remember, we also are into real estate. So if we go there and maybe we buy the strip mall or the property, or we have somebody in our circle buy the strip mall or the property, and then you come in as a franchisee, and we're able to even make some accommodations on the rent and things like that. But these are just ways I think that we can scale in our community. Okay. The local management of each franchise unit will be highly motivated and very effective. They treat the franchise units as their own, and they will usually lead to higher sales and profit levels. So it's their business. They're going to treat it differently. Again, we will have classes, because you won't be able to bring some of the behaviors that you learned when you worked in corporate or at some of these other businesses. You won't be able to bring some of that crap over here. So we'll have classes so that you'll learn. But what we are hoping to be able to develop is motivated and effective management, which is one of the advantages of having a franchising. You can have fewer employees. The number of employees that a franchisor needs to operate a franchise network is much smaller than they would if everybody was opening up and starting from scratch. See, part of the problem that we have in our community is that we're just constantly starting over. We don't have enough family owned and family camaraderie. Everybody's kind of rugged and individual and on our own. And I'll be honest with you, it's just something that's always that has always bothered me, probably because just growing up in business and seeing people that I know from other communities who have family members who would just come and roll up their sleeves and be like, look, let's get so-and-so's business open. And then people begin to scale, and from there, we tend to kind of have things differently, right? Where we have our hands out, where we want something and we're competitive and we're jealous and we got something to say, but we don't help. And so to cover that shortfall, because a lot of people don't have that in their family. A lot of people don't have a situation where their parents have money where they can invest in them. We have to be that for one another. And so if you know me, you know anything about me, if you open in a business, if you got something going on, if you remodeling, moving, you got a problem, I'm there rolling up my sleeves, because I've always seen it as a major setback when we have to do everything ourselves and try to figure out how to come up with everything ourselves. And so even working through with the classes to get over some of the criticism and competitiveness that we have with one another. I mean, I wish that I'd love it when you guys come to me and say, hey, I'm trying to open up a business and I can be of service. And then that way we can get kind of out of this thing of not wanting to pay each other as well. People can't work for free. They can't give you their time for free. They can't give you their proprietary systems and processes for free. So you got to pay for it, and you got to be okay with paying somebody who looks like you for giving you what you would be paying somebody else for more than likely anyway. And I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that I do, I give more in service value than what it is than I receive. Most of my colleagues and people at my level, they charge astronomical amounts of money to help people build their businesses. I charge, but I don't charge what they charge. And I do that because I just feel like I want to be of service to my community. And I feel like if we have to keep paying retail prices for everything, we got to get a break from somewhere. We're going to just kind of always be starting over from scratch. And here's the thing. You're never too old or too young to start a business. I know people in other communities. I had somebody who talked to me. We did a consultation. They're thinking about hiring me to help their 10-year-old twins start a business. So you can be, it doesn't matter. You can be 70, you can be 6, you can be 75 or 80. It's never too late to start your business. And it's never too late to leave, a legacy to our family. I think it would be nothing. Imagine, let me say it this way, graduating from high school and having a business that you can go right into, or owning a business that you don't necessarily have to go to, but puts money in your pocket so that you can live your life. And so if you ever get a point in your life where you're down or you're tired, you're not like, man, I'm about to scrape the bottom of the barrel because I don't have a safety net. So this is a way that we can be, as a community, we can be an opportunity zone, and we can be a safety net for one another. So we have to cover the gap for what the trauma of living here in America has caused in our families and in our communities. Okay. So that's why I'm saying the micro organizations where there's certain levels of relationships and camaraderie is where we can begin to start these types of programs. Okay. It'll help reduce the risk, right? The risk will be limited, as well as the liability, because the franchisor is going to carry some risk. The franchisee is going to carry some risk. So you kind of spread it around. If that franchisee goes into business in a certain area, and let's say that business doesn't make it, then the franchisor can say, hey, let's put you in this business. You know how sometimes when you go to the nail shop and the person that you saw that used to work at a nail shop downtown now works at the one by your house because that one closed down? Because oftentimes they'll take the people and say, hey, we're going to close the store for whatever reason, but we're going to place you in other areas. That way people aren't constantly starting over and hitting rock bottom. Okay. We talked about brand equity because on the franchisor level, we're going to be busy building the brand. We'll be busy with advertising and promotions that the franchisee will benefit from. And then most importantly, we'll be setting up and establishing a certain loyal customer base, right? Because if you travel around the world like I have, there are certain brands that when you see in other places, you kind of know and rely on when you get to that other country, because you may be like, ooh, I know I could get me some Starbucks. I was at Starbucks in Beijing, and I was like, I can get me some Starbucks. Went up there and got me a Starbucks. Or you can say, if you eat McDonald's, you can say, oh, there's a McDonald's in Lagos. Or we passed by a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Lagos. There's just sometimes there's different franchise, and that customer loyalty, will kick in, and people will stop there and people will go there. I collect Starbucks mugs from different states and cities and countries that I've gone to. So I couldn't wait. As soon as I saw the Starbucks, like, I got to get me a Beijing Starbucks cup, right? So anyway, there's the customer loyalty. And again, talking about international expansion is definitely something that we can move into with that as well. And sometimes people change the menu, depending on what part of the world that they're in. But again, those micro organizations. So if, let's say you're a Muslim and you don't eat pork and you only eat halal meat and certain types of foods, well, when people see your franchise and they eat like that, or they want to experience the cuisine of that particular culture, then they know that they can go there and experience it. Okay. Sister Sandra says, Sister, you've been teaching and training on your channel since I've been listening. If we would take some of the game and get your services, it'll all be good. Listen, I believe that wholeheartedly. And I'm just going to keep doing it. Maybe when I'm dead and gone, people will pick up these podcasts, and we'll have, I'm working on a new book. Maybe people will pick it up and go, hey, you know what? This might work. But I don't know. Hopefully it happens while I'm here, because I damn sure want to see it and be a part of it. So we'll see. Any questions about franchising and just the concept and how we can do that? Sister Sandra D and her Diet Right grocery store. I'm loving that. And you know what's so beautiful about that? When people see Diet Right, and let's say they know that they're suffering from diabetes, or they don't want to get diabetes, they can go, I know I can go up in here and find me some good stuff. Or I know I can go over here and find me something that's not going to cause cancer, because Sister Sandra's researching the products and things like that she's putting in her store. And they don't have to all be Black owned. Of course, you want to lean towards Black owned. A lot of times when it comes to food and processed food, I see a lot of us going into the food business, but we're going into the processed food business, which is some of the culprit of the vascular devastation that's happening in our community. You know, we're losing over 100,000 people a year due to cardiovascular related illnesses, and it comes from these packaged and reprocessed foods that we eat and we feed to our children. We think it's healthy. Some of us have children and we only feed them fast food, and we wonder why they're autistic or why their development is slow. Some people feed their children snacks for dinner. They don't think about healthy snacks or healthy meals. They feed their children stuff that ain't even real. Because if you pick up a food item and you look at the label and it's a paragraph, trust me, it ain't food. And the first thing we learn, one of the first things we learn as Muslims in the Nation of Islam, is we used to get a list of chemicals to stay away from when we would go into the grocery store. So even now, when I go in, if it's a brand I'm not familiar with, I'm looking at it. And the first thing I look at, if it's a paragraph there, I know it ain't food. I stay away from things that are already packaged. And so sometimes that may mean we got to spend a little time in the kitchen. We got to start canning our food. But at Diet Right Grocery, she may have some pre-canned things that are canned by the MGT that's in the store on the shelf. Since we don't consume items having been stored in aluminum as Muslims, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that it causes Alzheimer's, for one, and those chemicals in that aluminum, just like those non-stick pans that we love so much, those chemicals are ingested inside of us and start to swim around in our bloodstream and infect all of our organs and cause all kind of problems. So instead of aluminum canned foods, maybe there's actual, you know how we have canning class in our women's class in the Nation of Islam, where we can, you see us with that clear mason jar where we've pressure canned in the jar our bean soup and fruits and, you know, some other things. Maybe that's for sale in the Diet Right Grocery. Now, it's not going to have, it may or may not have the shelf life. Some of them canned foods, they stay on the shelf for 20 years. But it just depends. We won't be serving, you know, scavengers and things like that, bottom feeders of the ocean and stuff like that to our people. So people will know, hey, I know if I go to the Muslim grocery store, I'm going to get me some healthy stuff. I know it's going to be clean. There's many of us have farms and gardens. And we sometimes the things grow so fast, we got to get them to market quickly. And so, maybe if it's, and now we're eating in season. If we're shopping at the Diet Right grocery, we're eating in season. So if this is cucumber season, we're eating cucumbers in this season. That's also part of living in vibration with the earth. Because if cucumbers ain't in season, why are you eating them? You're eating them because somebody probably canned them or froze them or grew them in an organic lab or printed them. Y'all seen this printed meat they coming out with. All right. Yeah, I agree, sis. Food tech classes in store, clean, unclean list. Yeah, you can have a little cafe there on the side where people can get fresh squeezed juices and tea and coffee, and it's a little social gathering as well. So there's so much that we can do. We just got to be willing to do it and be ready, and we got to be like-minded. Servant Nasir, walaikum salam. Thank you for joining us. Do for Self, thank you for joining us. Sister Aletha gave us the bullseyes. Any other questions? Anything you all want to talk about franchising and scaling businesses in our community? Let's focus on making our communities opportunity zones. Why is this important? Because as a demographic, we are primarily looked at as consumers, but there is a growing number of people in our communities who are business people, who are professional, that have fabulous ideas. Nobody is tapping into that, not even the broader market. These same people are going downtown or going somewhere, working on a job and coming home. Our ideas aren't even being utilized. So there's so much talent in our neighborhood, so much creativity. We are not all ratchet. We ain't all run around here twerking and swarming stores. There's a healthy number of us who are decent people. Believe it or not, Black people, we're very conservative. But there's a decent number of us who are doing good work out here, who are good people and who are good professionals and are investment worthy. And our neighborhoods are in opportunity zones. So, and some of us, believe it or not, if we know, if it's our nieces and nephews and cousins and grandchildren that's out here acting ratchet and swarming stores and, going downtown, jumping on cars and stuff, check your children, check your niece, check your nephew. Get it together. Because when they start charging people and start charging the parents for the damage that the children have done, y'all gonna be saying it's racist and it's unfair. So let's get it together, because it's time. It's time to create these opportunity zones. And guess what? Then when our children are young, they can go to work in our stores and our restaurants and with our service providers, so they're not picking up some of these bad habits. See, you can't send your children to private school all their life and pay to seclude them and keep them away from all this ratchetness. But then when they need a job, you send them to work for ratchet people who's going to sexually harass them, who's going to teach them bad habits, teach them how to steal time, who's going to treat them unfairly. And then they're going to be sitting there trying to figure out what kind of scam they can run so that they can get over on it. They don't want to have to hear your mouth, and they don't want to have to deal with them. So you can't invest in their behaviors on the one hand and then turn around and send them out into a world without either schooling them on how to make it or giving them an opportunity with somebody who's like-minded. Because let me tell you something. Our young people who are graduating from college and they're going and getting these jobs, I hate to say this, but 9 times out of 10, they're not learning nothing. You can fix in your mind and say, oh, because they're going to learn how to run an engineering firm and they're going to learn how to. Probably not, because they're going to go there and be a box checker. And the way that they're going to do well and get a raise on the job is if they learn how to check the box. Are they going there to learn operations? Likely not. So we have to teach our children that when people like Sister Sajda or Sister Betty or Sister Sandra or Servant Nasir or Sister Aletha or Sister Monica and some of you all in the chat are opening up a business, the best thing you can do as a young person is to get in on the ground floor. Best thing you can do. Get in on the ground floor. And don't kick your children out at 18. Make them, I know you got to set your rules and your boundaries and you ready to get out and start twerking and stuff like that yourself. But let's make an investment in our children and in our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our godchildren. They at 18, they shouldn't have to get out. That way they can go and work for Sister Sandra at Diet Right Grocery, and maybe she don't have $80,000 a year to pay them. Maybe she's only got 40, but since they living at home, they can get with her. They're half her age. So guess what? They can learn the grocery business and how to build a grocery from her. And then that grocery business will extend on. This is why Safeway and Kroger's and all these stores seem to stay around for generation to generation, because somebody is investing in the people who are taking the responsibility to ensure the ongoing concern of the business and the franchise. And at the level that our children are going into these companies, they're not learning that. Trust me, they're not. So you might think, oh, my child's a doctor, they're going to go to work at this hospital and learn such and such, so-and-so. No, they're going to learn the system that the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies have dictated to the clinicians that they have to use. They're not going to necessarily go and learn how to really, really, truly be a clinical interventionalist. All right. So yeah, we're talking about wealth building is what we're talking about. All right, family. I appreciate you all. Tune in tomorrow morning to Sajda's morning coffee talks. We're going to see. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Bring some questions. Tell some jokes. I think it's time to laugh. I need to talk about something funny. Let me figure out something funny to talk about. I think it's time for us to just laugh, to release some stress. You don't notice that people don't laugh anymore because everybody's so scared they're going to get canceled or so afraid that somebody's going to say something to them. Nobody's laughing anymore, but let's laugh. Let's laugh. Let's relieve some of this stress with a little laughter. All right. So 6 a.m. Central Time right here on the Sajda Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. We'll be here. Sajda Monday Morning Motivation. No, Monday Morning Motivation is Monday. Tomorrow, Sajda Morning Coffee Talks. So we got Coffee Talks 2 days, Friday and Saturday at 6 a.m. And then Monday morning, 6 a.m. We got the Motivation Show. Okay, family. Love you all. Peace and blessings. See you all tomorrow morning, inshallah.